And we will begin with analysis with a presentation of Marius Pečiulis, who is museologist, historian, and of course director of Ninth Fort Museum. As a researcher, he works in the field of history of wars in the first half of 20th century and the political and social history of the 20th century. And of course, the most important, he is hosting us, he is hosting this event. So Marius, the floor or the screen is yours.
Thank you, Vaidas. Thank you very much for your presentation, for introduction. And hello, good morning, good day, dear colleagues. Thank you very much. For me, it's a big pleasure to have possibility to attend such an interesting workshop. So I will try to give you a short background about the history of our museum, about the history of the site, and also I'll share the ideas for the future, and also will present our issues of today. So let me begin. And the memorial complex of Kaunas Ninth Fort is the site of mass murder during the Second World War. And the entire complex, as you see, occupies the territory of almost 50 hectares. The complex consists of 3 buildings. This is the building of Museum Administration, building of Museum of Occupations, as we call, and the authentic building of the Ninth Fort. Also, the territory consists of the monument to commemorate the victims of Nazism, as you can see it over there. And here, between the Ninth Fort and the monument, we can see the field of mass extermination, where during the years of Nazi occupation were exterminated about 50,000 people, not only locals, but also people who were deported here from other countries of Europe. Okay, the memorial complex of Kaunas Ninth Fort was opened 37 years ago in 1984. However, the history of this place moves us back in time more than 100 years. And here you can see the map of the 19th century. And at the end of 19th century, Lithuania was a part of Russian Empire. And Kaunas had the position of a strategically important city at the border with Germany. Here we can see Kaunas is located, and here we can see the border with the German Empire. As the danger of a military conflict with the neighboring country was growing, Russian Tsar Alexander II signed a decree to start building a first-class land fortress in Kaunas. And here we can see the map of Kaunas fortress. By 1891, Kaunas city was surrounded by a defensive ring consisting of 8 forts. Here we can see that ring. Here we can see those 8 forts, these 8 forts. And when these fortifications were built, it was noticed that the hill northwest part of Kaunas was not protected sufficiently. And for that purpose, the Ninth Fort was started to build in 1903. The construction lasted 10 years until 1913, and just one year before the First World War started. There were many new technological decisions employed in the project, and the construction of the fort distinguishing it from the others. It's one of the first concrete buildings in Kaunas region. And also it's the only fort with 2-story barracks and underground galleries joining different rooms and allowing secure movement of the garrison during the military actions. Only the Ninth Fort had technological innovations of that time: electricity, savage and effective ventilation. And also the width of its walls was from 1.5 to 2.1 meters. Yes, here we can see how fort looked at that time. And 1 year after the beginning of the First World War, in the August of 1915, the German army started attacking Kaunas fortress. Eventually, the fortress did not fulfill the expectations and did not become a serious obstacle for the enemies. The fortification system, built and developed for 35 years, collapsed only in 11 days. I would like to emphasize 11 days, just 11 days. The Russian garrison left the 9th fort quickly and without fights. Therefore, the exterior was almost unaffected, because the main attack of German army was orientated in southwestern part of Kaunas fortress. It was more orientated in those 3 forts, southwestern part, and as Kaunas 9th fort was in northwestern part, so that's why it wasn't damaged. So as well, here we can see some damages in the barracks of 9th fort, but that's why in 1918, when Lithuania became independent, pragmatic motives influenced the decision about the use of the objects of former Kaunas fortress. Due to the increased number of prisoners, the 9th fort was reconstructed into a division of Kaunas hard labor prison. In order to reconstruct a military object into a prison, no substantial investment was necessary. With a large area of land nearby, construction features, compact 2-story premises of the former barracks, and strong concrete walls, convenient infrastructure, good connection with Kaunas city using the road of the former fortress, and also telephone connection. The fort barracks were reorganized into 14 main cells, 7 cells in each floor, and it was foreseen to accommodate 214 prisoners. In front of the barracks of the 9th fort, red brick wall with guard towers, here you can see it, was built, as well as a wooden outbuilding for the prisoners. Yes, the state allocated also about 80 hectares of land for the newly established prison. The prison was operating in the 9th fort during the whole period of the Lithuanian independence, and it was mainly used to imprison the members of Communist Party, because communist movement was forbidden in Lithuania. In 1940s, when Soviet Union occupied Lithuania, the purpose of the 9th fort also changed. In a few days, all imprisoned communists were liberated. Its cells were filled by former politicians and intelligence of independent Lithuania, and here they were imprisoned temporarily before deportation of to forced labor camps in remote regions of the Soviet Union. And the bloodiest period in the history of the 9th fort started in 1941 with the Nazi occupation. This was the most tragic period in the history of the 9th fort. During a few years, all numerous Jewish community of Lithuania was destroyed, and the 9th fort occupies an exclusive place in the map of the Holocaust. For the Nazis, it served not only as a prison, but also as suitable and distant site for the mass murder of peaceful residents. Preparation for the mass murder started at the end of August 1941 and remained as such until the end of the Nazi occupation in 1944. Several hundred Soviet war prisoners were transported to the fort in the field nearby. They dug trenches of 200 meters in length, about 3 meters in width, and 2 meters in depth. During the whole occupation period, 14 such trenches were dug in total. Here we can see the visualization of the site. You can see the fort and the monument, and here is the field located, and here you can see the possible places of those trenches that I've just mentioned. The ninth fort is the only place in Lithuania where not only local but also foreign people of Jewish origin from such European countries as Germany, France, Poland, Czechoslovakia, the Soviet Union were killed. A precise number of killed people is still unknown. There are various sources, and still it's estimated that the total number of victims probably killed in the site reaches approximately about 50,000 persons. But as I said, so this isn't exact number, and I don't think that someday we will have exact numbers because due to the lack of authentic information sources, Nazis destroyed the documents. So now we historians are suffering the lack of the documents, authentic documents. Yes, and by the way, I just like to emphasize that here we can see the authentic photo. This is the unique photo from that period. It's about 42, the year 1942, 1943, and this photo was made by German Air Forces. This is the ortho photo, and here we can see the actual situation of the 9th Fort in the years of Nazi occupation. And here we can see the place of mass extermination over there. Okay. Coming further, since the Soviet came back in 1944, the 9th Fort was returned into the disposition of NKVD, and it was used again for their purposes until the 1948. As well as with the period of Nazi occupation, historians are suffering of the lack of authentic sources of information, trying to make some conclusions about that short gasket of Fort's history. And there are different opinions, but I didn't find any information to conclude that physically the prisoners were imprisoned in the 9th Fort after 1944. The logical reason is that the condition of infrastructure was really terrible, as you can see on a photo made in 1950s. So since 1948, the 9th Fort was used as more as a food storage because of conditions similar to freezer. And in 1958, the decision by Ministry of Culture of Soviet Lithuania was made to establish at the Museum of Revolution in the 9th Fort. And the next year, the museum was opened for the visitors. Officially, it has to represent the crimes made by fascists. Just want to emphasize that the political regime of independent Lithuania was interpreted as fascistic as well. On the other hand, there were unofficial rumors that in the public space that this museum was dedicated to Antanas Sniečkus, the head of Lithuanian Communist Party, because he was imprisoned in the 9th Fort, and when the first Soviet occupation started, he came to power directly from the prison cell of the 9th Fort. But the establishment of a museum was just the first step before grandiose plans to commemorate the site. At the opening ceremony, just a field stone was just a field stone that marked the mass extermination field, and in the next few years, the concourse was announced to create the project of Kaunas 9 Fort Memorial Complex. In the photo, you can see the commemorational stone, and also you can see the first test of visualization of the space, how it has to look in the nearest future. But Vaidas, that speaks after me, will make you more familiar with the issues related to the building process of Kaunas 9 Fort Memorial Complex. And then I'm jumping toward the period of independent Lithuania. In 1990s, Lithuania re-established its independence, and suddenly the question appeared, what to do with such an ideological tool as the Museum of Kaunas 9 Fort was in Soviet era. Even there was debates that this museum has to be closed or connected to another museum, just as the division, but not as a separate museum. And on the other hand, since the re-establishment of Lithuania in 1990, a possibility to express ideas freely has arisen, and the topics prohibited during 50 years of Soviet occupation have been discussed. A possibility to speak not only about Nazi, but also about Soviet crimes, commemorating victims of Soviet regime as well. So the new expositions were established that introduced to the visitors all historical periods of the 9th Fort history. So the period from the 1990s till 2012, I would describe as the dark ages, because I think that the institution missed its identity. Let's try to compare. On one hand, thinking at the end of Soviet era, Kaunas 9 Fort Museum was one of the biggest museums with newly developed infrastructure in 1984, just in 1984, and in 1990s, just 6 years after of operation, it became subject on debate on enclosure. But the things changed. I think during these years of independence, museum found its new identity. We created new exhibitions, and I think that now Kaunas 9 Fort Museum became an institution that are prepared to develop the cultural services of high quality. And seeking for new results, our biggest challenge, I think now, is related with the infrastructural problems. Since 1984, no sufficient modernization of the infrastructure weren't done, and due to mistakes made in construction process and very expensive and difficult exploitation of technological infrastructure, the buildings of the museum have been unheated for more than 30 years, and also they weren't isolated very well from the corrosive effects of water. And so here you can see all those defects and the pictures. And for example, the ceiling plates moved down for a few centimeters just because of their heavy weight, and the problems of leaking water are accompanying the building of the museum just since the opening. Here you can see the problems of leaking water were solved by covering this skylight with a sheet of tin from the inside. Yes. But now we are moving to another period of history of the museum, and in 2020 we signed a new financial agreement to finance a new museum renovation project. And during the implementation of that project, we are expected to renovate the building of the museum, also install and create new exhibitions, also renew the paths of the museum, and also install a new lighting. And we are seeking to finish that project in 2023. So, thank you for your attention. Now I'm giving my word to Vaidas, but if you will have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Here you can see my contacts, so please write me, send me letters, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marius, for presenting history and nowadays. And now we will jump a little bit into history again, and I will talk about the monument of Ninth Fort, and we'll show you some pictures about how it was constructed, how the idea was developed, and you can see a part of this huge history. But what is really important for me, and what I would like to tell you, that Ninth Fort as a monument, we cannot talk about this monument separately from the whole ideological background of that period. And right now, there is a discussion in society about the monuments of the Soviet period, what to do with them and how to proceed with them. And it's not a secret, Ninth Fort is one of them. Probably is more welcome if to compare with others, but still there is a questions regarding this, and why we do is have questions. So from my point of view and from my personal experience, I think that this period of time and this monument, we are going hand by hand, and we cannot separate the imagination and look at this monument just as a concrete structure, as an impressive concrete structure, but it had a background. So first of all, I would like to show you some pictures about the background. If we are talking about Soviet Lithuania, about Soviet urban environment, we naturally have to talk a little bit, at least, or if we're talking about monuments, it's the main part of the discourse about ideological monuments. And these ideological monuments, of course, Soviets started to erect right after the Second World War. And it was two main topics. One topic, it was for the victory. Here you can see the monument of victory in Šiauliai, another monument for victory in Klaipėda. And the next topic was, of course, the cult of Stalin as a person, as his achievements. And of course, you could find plenty of monuments of Stalin. Here is one of examples in Kaunas, but you can find in Vilnius and other places as well. And even in the railway station, if you enter the railway station in 1952, you would face portraits of Lenin and Stalin. Of course, they were removed after the death of the Stalin, but it was the first wave of this political symbolism, and we cannot understand this idea of monument, of Soviet monument, separately from this ideology. A very good example of ideology is Vilnius airport. When you will land in Vilnius, probably you will do this sooner or later, you will notice that the building itself is full of sculptural symbolism, and I would call it as a kind of a Bible. You can read about who was the heroes of the Soviet, and etc., etc. So this is the first wave, is Stalinist period, and you can find symbolism even at the ordinary housing, and it was natural. Also, regarding the victory, our towns had some heavy Soviet tanks as monuments. And again, even in front of Kaunas History Museum at that period, or Vytautas Great War Museum, which was built in interwar, even in front of this museum, it was replaced heavy tank Joseph Stalin. But it was removed in 1962. So the whole context of early Soviets, of course, talks about victory, talks about Stalin, and later in 60s, with came of the Khrushchev, I would say we experienced a kind of change in this politics, and this attitude, and the symbolism is not so direct. And here is one of the most famous monuments of the period, of Pirčiupiai. So it's grief and like the picture of mother, not a soldier, but still it talks about Soviet ideology, about peace, let's say. Or even in my university, in Kaunas University of Technology, we still have the same scene with I forgot the word with this bird. And so it's, again, it's still ideological. Nevertheless, you can say this is just a girl and just a mother. And of course, we continue to build monuments for Lenin, for soldiers, and maybe they are becoming a bit more complex, a bit more sculptural, and not so directly symbolical as it was in the Stalin's period. Another important aspect of this topic is burial places. Just right after the war, of course, these places were very primitive, and you can see one of the rare pictures of, maybe not so rare, but one of the pictures of 1945, where the soldiers doing this process. But later, what happened later, these burial places become cenotaphs in some cases, or actual burial places, but they were placed in the central parts of our towns, and usually near our churches, and one of such examples is in Palaga. And what's our resort town? And what is interesting, these monuments now are protected as a cultural heritage, because we witness, we are like grave monuments, and of course it's an important issue, not just political. But if you look from political perspective, you can imagine that this soldiers in 30 years after independence might look a little bit awkward. And again, by the end of the Soviet period, these monuments became more artistic and less directly ideological. And the last part of the background is a large scale of monuments. The 9th, 4th as you already see, and as you can imagine, it's a huge structure. And, but it was not the only one in Lithuania. And in 1972, in Kryžkalnis, it was built a monument, Mother of Kryžkalnis, again, with a narrative of curing mother, and by sculptor Bronius Vyšniauskas and architect Vytautas Gabriūnas. And actually, these monuments is a part of era of grand monuments dedicated to Great Patriotic War, which was started in Leningrad, in Stalingrad, in Brest, in Kursk. So Lithuania was not an exception. Another also large-scale monument was in Šiauliai, and as you can imagine from the pictures, it was with quite impressive structures, and probably not a surprise, but it was a place to visit during the wedding ceremonies. But both of these monuments, they disappeared already, and what we have left Ninth Fort. So what is important that even though we are admiring the concrete structure, but we are also have this old ideological background. And Marius already showed that the Ninth Fort is on the outskirts of Kaunas, and I will continue with the idea of extending the place, extending the existing fort with the new constructions, which include, of course, monument, but also museum, also administrative building, where we are, by the way, where we are now. And it was a large construction. If we are talking about construction, it was started in 70s and ended in 1984, but the competition for the place began as early as in 1966. And as a sculptor, Ambraziūnas noticed in his diary, he says that this competition was a new concept of Lithuanian monumental sculpture. It was formed, the new concept of monumental sculpture, during this competition. And I would just bring here a few examples, actually not few, but the entries by Ambraziūnas and architects, sculptor Ambraziūnas and architects Boravykas and Vielius. But of course, we had many more entries, not just by these architects who were architects and sculptors who were winners. But here you can see the first entry in 1966. Then is the next entry in 1968, which is rather different, probably more elegant. And again, we suggested another entry in 1969 with, again, more heavy structures. And finally, in 1970, there is a final entry, the fourth stage, with the monument, for the monument we have now. And again, I will just show you few pictures, few sketches of the idea, how the idea was developed. So this is the sketches by Ambraziūnas, how we developed the idea. And Marius already showed that after we already decided to build this structure, we made a kind of a scale model on the site, as you can see in this picture. But what is also very important to notice that it was not so easy to convince the authorities to build a monument like this. And if you look into the historical pictures, you can count hundreds of commissions, well, maybe not hundreds, but tens of commissions who were in the place and discussing, is it a good decision? And a little bit later, already when the construction started, the Soviet newspaper Pravda, which is the main newspaper, accused the design for so-called formalism. So maybe we were lacking of realistic sculpture of, I don't know, mother or father of the victory. But after all these discussions, we finally started to work on this. And again, it's probably interesting to know how the work process was the working process. So what we did from the beginning, we did a model from clay, which was 8 times smaller, and it's 4 meters high and 7 meters wide. And for more precise details like faces, hands, Ambrazunas made clay models just 1-to-1. It's real size models. And you can see here the Ambrazunas working in, it's interesting, in the church, one of the churches. As you know, in the Soviet period, many of the churches were converted into different functions. So one of the functions was the artist studio. And finally, the complex started to construct. And what is very important to emphasize that in order to have such a monument, it was not just a sculpture. It's a piece of engineering. It's half building, I would say. And of course, it requires experienced engineers. And in Vilnius, it was set up a group of engineers, Gavelis, Gerulis, and Karvelis, who were famous engineers on that period, and were working on that topic. So here in the picture, you can see the beginning of construction. Here is a large portrait of Alfonsas Ambrazunas himself, the sculpture of the monument. What is interesting, again, what I found in the notes of Ambrazunas, I will just read the quote. He says that the monolith of the monument was simply made of planks. This gave the form the new and modern look. And I can not avoid of comparison with Le Corbusier and his Unité de Habitation and this brutalist approach, which probably inspires us to talk about this concrete architecture as a brutalism. So again, I understand that there is a discussion if we have such a phenomenon of brutalism or not, but if we have, 9/4 is one of the best examples in Lithuania. So again, you can see some historical photos on how it was done in reality, and you see this wooden planks and concrete structure, how it was made, and the whole process. What is also very interesting, I already mentioned that we did a scale 1:8, but when we actually started to construct on the site, it turned out that some parts actually are significantly differ from the project. And the sculptor himself, Ambrazunas, he said, but well, we can allow us 20 centimeters deviation. But actually, the deviation was much bigger. And what is turned out in 1979, he writes to the Minister of Culture of Lithuania and SSSR that due to the construction errors, 1/3 of the sculptural forms must be rebuilt. And of course, it will be so-called a waste of materials. So this is the answer why it took so long. It was not easy process when we are talking about these day technologies and about abilities how to work with this. Here is the picture of Vytautas Vielius, one of the architects of the museum. And now is the museum. We already saw some pictures in Marius' presentation, and I just want to give a very brief introduction, just a few words. Actually, I always say that the museum is, it's not I say, it's naturally, the museum is a part of the whole complex, and the idea is the same. It's a kind of a brutalist sculpture, brutalist building, and there is a very thin line between what is exterior, what is exterior, what is sculpture, what is building. And here you see the model, and here you see the discussions and the construction process. But what is really interesting that if you look more precisely on the roof or the cover of the roof, it's a concrete slabs, which reminds me a little bit, or maybe exactly the slabs of Laisvės Avenue in Kaunas we have. Or at least it was really unusual to cover the building with such material. And of course, interior was impressive by itself, but also we should mention that Marius already showed you the stained glass, so-called Undefeated by Kazimieras Morkūnas, which is also really impressive structure. And here is the picture from interior, where you can see that it's a real good example of brutalism. And here is the picture of the administrative building, and we are sitting behind these windows, and I'm giving a lecture just from this place. So just to conclude and to come back to the memorial ensemble, as already mentioned, that in the beginning, actually, it was a discussion. Probably it's too modern and not in line with ideology, but when it was built, of course, the ideology was entitled to describe this, and in the Tiesa, Pravda, Lithuanian version of Pravda, you can read that the entire monument ensemble must speak about struggle, the victory and the suffering of the people, those who died in the struggle for liberation. And probably it's not a surprise that the monument got the US Soviet Union State Prize and awarded twice the Ambrosiūnas, and of course architects Vytautas Vielius, Gediminas Baravykas for the whole memorial complex. And here is the last picture, and here you can see the opening ceremony. So this is what I wanted to show for you, and this was the last slide. And now I would like to continue our discussion about the 9th Fort, and to invite David Lopez to join our conversation on the 9th Fort. David is an structural engineering, working mainly in bridges and working with new constructions as well as with reconstructions, and his projects, you can find his involvement in very different places of the world, starting from Saudi Arabia and ending with Haiti, if I correct, and he's also involved in academic work in Madrid, Institute of Polytechnics in Madrid. But of course, for us, it's very important to have David as a researcher of 9th Fort Monument. So David, welcome, and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Vaidas. Thank you for your kind introduction. And well, I want to start by welcoming everybody, INNOVACONCRETE colleagues, but also all the rest mainly. And thank you for attending and showing interest in this topic, because as you know from yesterday's presentations, one of the main objectives of the project is the dissemination and public awareness of the importance of this type of structures that are not all the way recognized by the population, and it's important to build awareness. So we count on you, and so thank you for attending. Before going ahead with my presentation, which is gonna talk about the involvement of this monument within the INNOVACONCRETE project, I want to start thanking first of all Vaidas Fikulis for organizing this workshop together with all the people of ICOMOS, and also I want to give a special thanks to Marius, who we enjoyed the presentation that you both gave. But I want to thank particularly to Marius because, well, he has been very, very, very kind and very, very helpful on all the activities that we had to carry out for conducting the project activities. So once said that, I just want to start with this picture. I know that you've seen many pictures of the monument already, but I want to show just this video to show a bit the scale and give you a more idea of the significance of the monument, no? And why not also to call your attention on it, and well, to see if after today's sessions we can convince you to visit the monument, no? That is absolutely significant and magnificent, as you can see, and also to make you jealous, as I've been already 4 times there and I could enjoy it. So before going ahead with my presentation, I just want to call your attention in that up to now the workshop has mainly focused in 2 of the objectives of the project, which were on one hand we had yesterday in the presentation the definition of the 20th century concrete-based cultural heritage. That was one of the main objectives of the project, with the excellent selection of the 100 monuments within Europe, no, that Susanna presented yesterday as part of the Comomos work. And we have also another objective, as I was saying, that is creating public awareness about the importance of these monuments. That it's been mainly the focus up to now of the workshop. And unfortunately, I'm going to be speaking about the third one that maybe is not so attractive, which is the third objective, which is basically the development of products that are oriented to rehabilitate this type of monuments. No? In regards with the products, which is the process that we need to follow. No, when we develop a product, before it comes to be commercial, we need to follow a certain process. Such process is here summarized a bit, so you understand in which position we have our activities in the fort. No, first we start with the theoretical analysis and validation, which basically consisted in conducted physical models, in which we represent certain parameters. Well, not us, but other people of the INNOVACONCRETE team, that they represent certain parameters of the products and of the concrete in order to confirm that the ideas of the product developers are feasible. Next, we pass to the laboratory analysis and validation, which basically consists in applying this type of products, on existing current mortars and concretes, more commercial ones. And as well, there are certain mock-ups built with properties of the case studies that we are analyzing, that also have been analyzed at laboratory scale. And finally, we take it to the real cases, no? And we need the monuments or the case studies that we have within the project in order to validate in the real world if actually this works. And then it comes the possibility of getting the product industrialized if the results are good. Altogether, we have 7 monuments that we are using as case studies in order to do this process. No, so Kaunas Fort is one of them. Kaunas Land Fort Monument, I mean. So I'm going to start by which is the role of the monument in the INNOVACONCRETE project. Okay, what did we do and why did we do it? No, as I was saying, there was a theoretical part and also a laboratory part. Well, we had a first stage which consisted in characterizing the concrete in order to provide input to the laboratory validation. What does this mean? Well, we did certain activities on site in order to obtain the concrete properties, be able to identify the decay processes and identify the damages. On one hand, to be able to build those mock-up samples that were analyzed at laboratory scale, but additionally, in order to detect which were the the most suitable products that we are developing as part of the project to be tested in this monument. The in situ, in another stage, we have the in situ validation, which is it goes directly to the real cases analysis, no? Where we have the products application and the performance monitoring, and finally we get to the in situ validation, and we can get afterwards to a next step of the industry. Before continuing, I would like to just go through a short timeline of our activities related with the 94th monument, which are, we started with the materials characterization that I was speaking before in August 2018. Following that, we started the application of the products in October 2019. Here we applied 2 products. And unfortunately, after that, COVID came and all the plans had to be changed. And we couldn't go back to the monument until August last year, no? Where we conducted the first monitoring activity related with the 2 products that we had applied in 2019. And we profited also the visit to to apply new products that were already at the time. Besides that, after that, I mean, we conducted another 2 visits for completing different monitoring periods, which were in December and in May of this year. Okay, so what did we do on the characterization stage? Well, here we started by historical research, but historical research that is not what you think of, no? We've been having presentations about the history and the meaning of the monument, and it's not that we weren't interested in this, it's that for the particular activities of the project, we had the interest on other aspects, no? We were more related with the construction process, no? So we were willing to know if the different sculptures were built at the same time, or each one was built independently and they finished one before starting the other. How was the concrete supply? That you can see, for example, in this picture, that it was supplied with cement mixer trucks, and was supplied with a pump, and it came from a cement mixer, from a concrete plant, so that would allow having a more homogeneous concrete. So we were obtaining different information from the historical research. Besides that, we conducted a geometrical definition. We developed a 3D model based on pictures that we could obtain from a drone survey, and that it was very useful for us in order to be able to represent on it the different damages that we found, and classifying them, and afterwards doing other type of studies. For example, we have here an example of a climate study that we did in terms of the solar impact that the monument has got in the different periods of the year and at the different times, no? To know a bit which are the areas where we have more tendency to have moisture problems and so on. Besides that, we completed the characterization with other non-destructive tests, such as thermography imaging, also for getting moisture patterns. We obtained certain compressive strength values, and also concrete covering and the patterns of the reinforcement. And finally, we completed this characterization stage together with the help of Instituto Roja, conducting the structure test. We extracted core samples that were analyzed at the laboratory, and interesting conclusions were reached. So at the end of the characterization, we could conclude that the environment into which the monument is subject to it's characterized by high precipitation and the existence of 2 ice cycles, mostly all around the year. And this gets us an exposure class according to today's standards, no? We have from the historical research obtained that it took over 10 years to be built. So that means that depending on the area, we have different concrete properties. But in general, we have a high quality concrete, and we have these values of density, porosity, and things. The important thing here was from the laboratory analysis of the samples is to detect that there was no active decay processes. No. And well, at the end, the conclusion was that the main problem, as Marius was highlighting at the beginning of today's sessions, that the main problem is the moisture, not the water. So we considered that this was a particular good case study for testing the hydrophobic product. And well, we found also some cracks, as I will show you afterwards, where we also tested other type of products that are being developed. So summarizing here, you can find the different products that were applied. Well, I apologize because the name is an internal name that those that are not familiar with the project won't say anything to you. But basically, we have 1 microcrack sealant, 3 cracks sealant for bigger cracks, and repair mortar. We had applied also consolidant and a water repellent that had 2 different versions, and they were both applied. And here where you can see a bit the locations in where each of the products was applied. The purpose of having different applications or different locations is in order to test those the variety of properties that that I was showing before, as well as the different exposure that we can find on the different areas. Okay, now I'm going to go a bit directly into the conclusions that we came up to now after the 3 monitoring periods that we have undertaken. And I want to highlight that these are still not definitive, and that we are missing certain measurements that the CNR Institute is going to be performing by the end of June, and that will complete the study. No? I'm going to go over the different products, not all of them, but some of them, just to summarize a bit. And I want you to understand that I have structured this in application conclusions and performance conclusions. Why? Because we tend to measure if the product is good or not by the performance, no? But we should never forget the application conditions, and the conclusions are important, because if the product is excellent, but the transport, the way of applying it, the way of preparing it, and the cost of it is very high, at the end is not going to get the market. No? So at the end, it's important also to know which are the application conditions that need to exist in order to make this feasible and interesting. No? So in this case, I'm going to talk about a sealing product that it was developed by an institute in Italy, and it's a product that it's a sealing crack product that is oriented for cracks between 5 and 10 millimeters, and it's quite high, quite big. It has a good packaging, a good preparation, good workability. It has a great color, and the texture is semi-liquid. No, it's easy to apply with a trowel, and it's like a mortar. I also show the conditions in which it was applied, because it's important for comparing it with the other case studies and reaching to conclusions in case we get to different results. No? In this case, the performance conclusions, we measured the crack variation and also how it was performing in terms of water absorption by using custom pipes. And in the case of the crack evolution, we can say that there was a significant reduction of it, but that due to the origin of the crack, that is mainly mechanical, and we believe that it has its origin due to settlements that are still not ended. After a certain time, it opened again. So we can say that it was working okay, but due to certain movements that are not related with the product, at the end it didn't show so nicely. But even so, the reduction was quite significant. So here you can see just an image of when it was applied and after a few months, and what happened after 9 months, that well, it opened a bit again. But it's true that it's also true that it didn't open as much as it was at the beginning. So it cannot be discarded. Something similar happened with this other product that is equivalent, that it was developed by Instituto Roja in collaboration with SICA, and that is also for the similar purpose with cracks or significant width. Also good packaging, good preparation, good workability. It has a white color in this case, and the application is very similar. No, and we had a similar experience to the one of the previous one that I was presenting. No, the reduction of the crack width and depth is significant. Due to the application, due to the presence of this crack in a very massive structure, and to the movements that is subject to, we believe that after 9 months it opened a bit, and this is why we also are not getting very good water absorption results, besides the roughness of the concrete that we can find there. But we are expecting better results from the SUSI tests that CNR will be undertaking at the end of June. So I suggest you that you wait until the end of the project to come up with conclusions for these products. Here you can see the size of the crack, that is quite significant, the application and after application. Well, it's worth highlighting that none of these products were giving hydrological problems after several time of application, and that it was due to the movements. We believe that they reopened a bit. Here we have another sealing project, another sealing product, but in this case for smaller cracks, also developed by Instituto Roja in collaboration with SICA. And as I say here, well, we have also good packaging, good preparation. Everything is positive as in the previous ones, and in this case we get very good results. There is a significant, almost full crack sealing. And besides having first a period that the measurement didn't come out well on water absorption, after 9 months it came very good. So we have tested also in 3 different locations, and we can validate the performance of this product. Here you have examples of the application and how it looks. Now this is a different product and for a different purpose. In this case, we are talking about looking or fixing the lamination problems. So here we have also the same. It's good it's easy to apply, easy to transport, and everything seems okay from the contractor's side. And in terms of performance, it also shows very good, because at the end, it improves quite significantly the compressive strength, and it gets improving. So at the end is what we are looking for, to improve the condition and seal this problem of the lamination that we had. I'm sorry that I don't have the pointer activated. I don't know if you can see here in the corner, it has the lamination problem that was coming out, and it was sealed with the product. It's true that we saw in a certain point that there was small signs of rheological problems, but this may be due to a problem in the application at that point. And I'm going to finish just with our star. I am super fond of this product. It's a water repellent developed by the University of Cadiz. And in terms of application conclusions, I have to say that the packaging is not extraordinary because, well, we had, if you leave it open, it can gellify. But if you do a proper packaging, as we did thanks to previous trials and things that we did before going to Kaunas, it can be handled, so it's not something problematic. The preparation is easy, workability is good. It has kind of a whitish color, but it doesn't show afterwards and over the concrete. And here is also interesting to know the consumption. The consumption is around 300 milliliters per square meter, and it's applied by brush, easy, or by spray, and it requires just a couple of layers. And within those 2 layers, we have the overall consumption of 300 milliliters per square meter. Well, here it's important to highlight the water absorption results that are exceptional. And I think that better than any tests, you have images, no? At the end, we were lucky in a way, no? To experience rainy days every time that we were there. And you can see after 9 months, it was completely dry, the surface in which it was applied. After 13 months, incredible also. And I don't know if you are ready to seeing this, but sit down properly and see after 18 months how it behaves. This time we didn't have a rainy day, so we had to do it manually. And it's really amazing the results that you can obtain with the application of this product. So congratulations to those product developers, and thanks once again to Marius for being so helpful every time that we were visiting the site and that we were doing our activities there. So thank you very much, and I give my word back to Vaidas. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for such nice presentation. And I guess for 9/4 it's very important to have this data and to know to how proceed further. And now we are at the end of our session, but I right now would like to ask some questions which I found in our message column. So the first question is in Spanish, so sorry, I cannot read, but it's very short, probably it's more a comment than a question, but the next question is goes for Marius. And the question is, the 9/4 has amazingly complex and significant history for Lithuania. If I understood correctly, you will now use the museum as a place to explain and interpret the whole Lithuanian history from World War I to the present. Is that correct? Marius, is that correct?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I can answer yes and no. Yes, we're presenting 4 main historical topics. This is the history of fortification, history of interwar period, also history of Nazi occupation, and also history of both Soviet occupations as well. There was, as I mentioned in my presentation, in the nearly 90s, there were debates trying to find new identity of the museum. And one of suggestions was that this museum has to represent only the history of Holocaust. But on the other hand, this place has his authentic relation with other topics, because all these historical periods that I've just mentioned has direct connection with the site. That's why the decision was made to represent all these 4 periods, and now we are doing this. But you know, what we are trying now to do is we're trying to yes, there are some mistake or no? You can hear me or no?
No, I'm here. Sorry, I just thought that I'm offline. Please continue.
Okay. So can I continue? Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, now we are trying to separate these topics, but separate them and separate them more physically, because we have different audiences. Some parts of our visitors, they are coming here to visit museum just for the topic of Holocaust. Some because of the topic of fortification and etc. So now we are trying to separate those groups to create the services that would be dedicated directly to those groups. And also we are creating new guided tours that navigates and directly visit directly those exhibitions that our visitors are interested in. So as I mentioned in my presentation, I talked a bit about our plans for the future. And I said that we are working on new concept on plans of new exhibition, and that will be installed in the Museum of Occupations. So we are trying to create, I would say so, new narrative, how to represent all these topics using one way. It's because especially when we are talking about topics of Holocaust and the topic of Soviet occupation, there are some arguings between those two groups, and we are still searching for a right way how to represent these topics, how to represent these very emotional topics, and how to find the most appropriate way to find the direct way to the consciousness of our visitors. If I answered your questions, if you will have more, so please don't hesitate to write me, and I will be happy to give you more wider answer.
Thank you, Marius, for your answer, and sorry for interrupting. And now the next question goes to David Lopez. Someone is asking, with the treatment of the cracks, will this not be a consistent issue requiring annual monitoring? So, David.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? Because I didn't get exactly the...
the treatment of cracks. Yes. Someone about cracks. Will this not be a consistent issue requiring annual monitoring?
Yes. What happens that in this case, for example, we don't have a continuous monitoring of it. Okay, and I think this particular case study is not the best for validating the cracks, because it's very massive, no? And all the cracks that we could find, or most of them, they are mainly they have a mechanical origin. What I mean, it's not a consequence of durable issues. So as we don't know if the trigger, the mechanical trigger that causes the cracks is already stabilized or stopped, we cannot grant that the fail of the product is due to a bad performance of the product. So I think there are certain products that came out properly and that we can validate, and those that didn't come out properly doesn't mean that they are not doing well, because at the end the origin that we are trying to fix is not the mechanical problem. It's just we just want to seal, no? And as you say, for mechanical origins, we need to monitor with continuous monitoring in order to see the behavior of the crack. We have this implemented in other case studies, and is being studied a bit separately. I don't know if I answered the question.
I hope so, but the next question is much easier. If the water repellent is available in India?
Well, at the moment, the product is not commercialized. So I suggest you that you get in contact with the people from the University of Cadiz. I imagine that Vidas can provide you their contact, and if not, you can contact me, and I will put you in contact with them. But this product is not yet commercialized. it well, hopefully by the end of the project, they can do the next step and make it go to the market.
So thank you, David. Thank you, Marius.